In the mic and caller mic. And caller mic.
Hello. Hello. எங்க ஜெனிதா வந்திருக்காங்க.
இது பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. Moment of oh, she come and join.
Please.
I'll call each one of you. நடுவுல ஒரு மேம் அது தெரியல பையன் கட்டி தேர் சாரா remove இல்ல இது மூவ் பண்ணிடலாம் சார் the someone that sits there.
AK sir will do the moment.
Yeah.
So beginning moment to good sir.
Yeah,
AK sir.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for everyone who have been staying here since morning. We have come to the last part of the workshop today. I'd like to invite the panelists one by one. Shri Mahesh Vinayakram sir, please. We have come to the last part of the workshop today. I'd like to invite the panelists one by one. Yes. Yes, sir. The chair, sir. Can we move? Sir, can we just move the table, son, so we can make. The screen இருக்கிறது அதனால பார்த்தேன். Yeah. I now request Professor A.R. Srinivas. Okay, sir. I now request Professor Shivaprakash sir, Head of Department of Psychiatry, MGMCRI, to. I request Chitra ma'am from Satya Special School to please take a space on the panel. I now request Mahalakshmi ma'am, the principal of PSBB Millennium School, Kadlur. I now request Professor Meena ma'am, please come and take her space on the panel. And last but not the least, I call Professor Anand Balyogi sir to please take his space on the panel. I now request Professor A.K. Sir, Ananthakrishnan Sir, to please give the mementos to the speakers. Sir, I request Professor Ananthakrishnan Sir to give the memento to Shiva Prakash Sir. I now request Sir to give the memento to Mrs. Chitra Shah ma'am. I now request Sir to give the memento to N. Mahalakshmi ma'am. The mementos, the others we have given in the morning, this is the certificate we'd like to give to Professor A.R. Srinivasan Sir. Professor Meena ma'am. So, Ananda sir, certificate. So morning we gave that. Sir, this is another one. Just keep it in your hand. I'll just for. Sorry. Yes. Sir, and Mahesh wants to take one picture with you. And sir, okay, sir. We had one extra session today by Mr. Somesh Pure, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now we'll start with the panel discussion. The first, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves and just in a few words explain as to why they think they would be they would want to be a part of a panel where we're talking about music therapy as a holistic therapeutic area or as integrating into healthcare and educational settings. Yes, sir.
Alphabetical order. Well, first of all, as director of this institute, it's my honor to be organizing this first ever event commemorating the World Music Therapy Week. And so I'm here as part of that. But more than that, I believe that music has a holistic approach because the whole process of music is holistic. It understands a human being as a multidimensional being and not just a body or not just a mind or not just a soul. So music understands your body, mind, spirit, plus something. That's something you could call it divinity. And that is what music tries to strike the note that brings out the divinity in us.
I'm Mahalakshmi, principal PSB Millennium School, Kadalur. Thank you, sir, for being, for making me a part of this association because I feel it's great privilege. Basically, I'm a musician. I learned sitar for 15 years under Ahmad Hussain Khan and Drupad Hindustani from Mr. Falguni Mitra. And music had been in my life right from day one, from my father, mother, and all that. So I never seen music as something separate. It's part of my breath. That's what I would say. But then I looked at it from a healing point of view, because in many circumstances where I had a lot of downfalls in my life or in my career or wherever it is, I felt music has healed me. Even recently, I underwent a vitrectomy surgery in my eyes, right eye, and I was so anxious, slightly panicked. The doctor suddenly played a beautiful music. He said, "You will calm down now." And I could just feel how they are operating, because it's not a GA. And you won't believe that whole instrument music which was playing behind really kept me so calm. And he said, "You cooperated very well in the surgery." So it's a standing example. That's what I see. So when I can experience something like this, a normal human being like me, I think children definitely have lots which they cannot express through words. That's what we feel in the school. Anxiety prone, problem with the parents, broken family, not able to take care of themselves, social stigma and all. So many things are there. So their kind of expression becomes quite, abnormal. We are not able to decipher what they are saying. So, but sometimes when we work with music, it has really, calm them down, because now we have the practice of 1 minute silent music and silence in the school in the morning and afternoon. So when they play that music, immediately, whatever they're doing, including my servant in the school, the security, whoever is there in the office, everybody goes into 1 minute silent, whatever you're doing. So just connect yourself to the music and then stay calm, and it regenerates. That's what I would like to say. So thank you so much. Let me add some more when the discussion goes on. I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Meena Ramanathan, the Vice Principal of School of Yoga Therapy. I don't know if I am actually eligible to be sitting here, because I'm not a music person. But the only eligibility I would say is that I've been here right from day one. The whole department, the center started. So that maybe gives me something. Like usually, like when we talk about yoga therapy, we say that don't give therapy, you have to be the therapy yourself. So that way, I would say music is a therapy by itself. You just play the music and the therapy happens, the magic happens. And to me personally, I would say music is a good medium for expressing yourself, your emotional, state, whatever it is, you can relate to a particular kind of music. That is the only thing I can share about, not being too technical about it. So as we go on, maybe, like we'll have more inputs.
A very good evening. Wonderful being here, and thank you for having me. My name is Chitra Shah, and I run centers for children with disabilities, intellectual disability. We have about 1,400 children across 10 centers in Pondicherry. Like Dr. Meena said, I don't sing. I don't have, but I've grown up listening to music right from my favorite Udupi temple in the Krishna temple in Udupi to my grandmother and my mother singing. So I think sometimes it's good to be good listeners, which is what I am. And I've enjoyed a lot of Mahesh Vinayakram sir's sessions at Orodan Art Gallery every time. So I love whatever he does. And the reason why I'm sitting here is I come from this space which thinks music is very elitist, right? That's the kind of parents I also interact with. But then a magic happened sometimes in 2010 when we had this professor, Dr. Nigel Osborne from the University of Edinburgh, who had come down for a workshop. And we were talking about music for special needs. And he said, Chitra, I use Indian ragas to work with children with autism in Scotland. And he showed us some of the, work that he does. And it was actually a real eye-opener, because we never looked at music from that perspective. And from then on, I think our search is what has led us here today, and the work that is happening in collaboration. So I have seen myself what kind of value music brings in, especially to a child either on the autism spectrum or a kid who is going through trauma or somebody who is non-verbal, and how music makes him express his emotions. We witness it firsthand. So I'm happy to be here, and I think it's just a dream come true that there is so much light being thrown into something like this. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all. Thanks to ISCM and School of Music Therapy for this opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. Sorry that I'm not able to take my mask off. Got a cold also. Please forgive me for that. I am Dr. Shiv Prakash. I am professor and head of psychiatry here at MGMCRI and also adjunct faculty here at SOMT. And I've been here from 2002. And totally I have around 28 years of experience, patient care, teaching, and a bit of research also. And I'm an amateur musician, no formal training as such, largely self-taught. And I actually use software synthesizers on a computer along with a keyboard to compose some music during the weekends, not all weekends, when I can make some time. Maybe if time permits, as the years go by, I might work on an album also. But I'm not sure if it will materialize. And I listen to a variety of genres, okay? But I lean a bit towards Western classical and electronic music. But I do listen to Indian music also, variety. And I'm a big fan of the Santoor, Pandit Shivkumar Sharma. I just love the sounds of the Santoor. And so I'm a very ardent believer in the healing power of music therapy. So as the panel discussion goes on, maybe I'll be able to shed a little more light on that. So thanks once again to the organizers for inviting me to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste. I'm Srinivasan. Just like Dr. Shiva, I have been very fortunate to be here since 2002. And in all humility, join hands with Dr. Shiva Prakash to state that we started the erstwhile music medicine unit, which has now metamorphosed into this mighty effulgence. Thanks actually to the great human service provided by Professor K.R. Satharaman, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, and Professor Ananta Krishna, Dean of Faculty. Now ably actually the baton has been passed on to my dear friend, who is actually a Bharatanatyam guru, a mridangist, a yoga expert, and whatnot. Now actually is donning the mantle of the director of Institute for Salutogenesis, which has holistically integrated music with yoga. I won't take much of your time, but I will just say, we're drawing reference to what Meena madam told. Tyagaraja in his Natak composition, all of us will know, Ninne Bhajana, he says, Snanadi Japa Tapa Yoga Dhyana Samadhi. So Nada Yoga does not distinguish between yoga and music. Music is yoga, yoga is music. That we perceived when Mahesh ji actually took us on a great sojourn on experience. So I don't think you need to confess that. On a personal note, I'll tell that two important things in my personal life. First one, poor learner I was. I won't even call myself a slow learner, a poor learner. I love to confide. I don't feel ashamed to tell that, because when you are talking about experiential music therapy, this other facet also has to emanate, isn't it? And I thought at one stage in my life, I would drop out from school because I was so poor. I could not, and in the meantime, my brother, younger brother, actually, of course, unfortunately, is no more. He had already entered into CMC Vellore as a medical student. So the odds were really heavy against me, in the sense I was the first in the family. And that peer pressure also was there, sibling pressure, and then the pressure. At one stage, I thought I will not be able to complete my school because I was so poor. I couldn't do well in science. I couldn't do well in mathematics. One day I felt very bad. I have to take my little bit of your time here, tell what exactly it means. My grandmother actually has learned from A. Parthasarathi, who was the revered father of A.P. Komala madam, the yesteryear thing. One day I listened to Yaro Yavar Yaro of M.S. Subbulakshmi. Then another day on Arangisai, those days actually they used to put that in AAR, and Bhairavi was the Nipadam, like Patnam Subramania's thing. I told my party, Anniki, and the party Padna Marie, Idum Day corrected, Adum Bhairi, Idum Bhairi, Unigizo, Irkupolarkini, at least upon that started actually. That is how I started. I never had the fortune of learning music, the correct thing, never rigmarole. Never ignore. I don't know. I don't know Varnam. I don't know gender verse, nothing, but somehow I can identify ragas. I am able to play. Similarly, percussion, I was very mad. I didn't have any opportunity in Vellore. And I learned a little bit of nuances of Mridangam from Tamil Vidwan Kiyappa, very close friend of Manargudi Iswaran sir and Thiruvaru Bhaktavatsam. Later I came and got actually under the tutelage of Thiruvaru Krishnamurthy sir, who is also the reward guru. And I told my teachers also, I don't know, sir, but you be genuinely good enough. 2 more gurus in Vellore. They taught me. First composition I learned was Endukoni Manasu, Tyagaraja and Kalyani. But my teachers were so generous. Why this fellow, actually, this fellow is a novice. He has not learned gender verses or whatever. He is aspiring for more. That is my first experience. Lo and behold, finally I topped. Actually, I was the university gold medalist in my postgraduate biochemistry in Christian Medical College, Vellore. This is an absolute thing. Second thing, from the jaws of death, I came out. Twice I was stuck COVID. Once here I was admitted in ICU battling for life. You will not believe, I thought I had lost myself. After, in fact, I was very unfortunate, I lost my mother. We were admitted in the adjacent beds here, in our own hospital here, ICU during COVID. I lost my mother, but my mother blessed me with that. You won't believe, constant singing actually for the next 6 months to 1 year has elevated. Now I can even sing for 1 hour or so, and my SpO2 doesn't go below 96. I experience, I have to confess, no. It is not a joke, no, it is happening. So what more actually proof to say music heals not only the body, mind, but the soul. So on this note, on a very humble note, actually, I greet you all and hand over actually to the eminent Mahesh ji.
Namaskaram. I mean, I would always be singing, but I don't know much to talk. But it's a surprise that Yogi ji said that you are among us. He said you are also in the panel. So that acceptance was so beautiful. So acceptance, and also what I learned in this pandemic is that, as sir said, it's a personal experience that it can bridge a generation. So for this, in this era of digital augmented reality or artificial intelligence or gadget mode thing, any one time and a quality 10 minutes or a 2-minute that you can spend with your loved ones is that I'm able to sing with my son and my daughter. And then the blessing that I could sit with my father. And whenever I go to him, it's the urge of Jnana Pasi. You go to a class with the fullest zest and the enthusiasm that you're going to learn a new song. You're going to learn something. So let it be anything in the artistic perspective. Let it be dancing, drumming, like how sir was doing. I just really missed it. So they had a beautiful jam session. It was amazing. It's just a gesture of your happiness through the music and love and support to the fellow people. So the meditation is already happening. As I said, you don't need to do anything. It's already happening. You come to a reality, you come to a state of understanding and the truthful, the prana, which already goes. So music is so relevant and important that 18 years of my session work, what I was doing, I could perceive and do it in 18 months. So I have distributed my own music sitting in Chennai, and I could do on 12 countries on 18 continents, and my music is available. And out of which I did something called Raga Meditation Series. So I've covered almost 8 ragas. So during this pandemic, I spent my time for my own self. Rather me spending the raga research, I had an opportunity to spend some quality time. So I started loving myself. I had an affair with me, and so I was just on this thing. I was quarantined with my own self, doing my music, and I was loving my music. So I started, this is a feeling where, like, I used to listen my music and put on we used to judge on a car, like when you play the music, how you react, your soul, how your soul connects. And the Shruti சேர்ந்துட்டு ஒரு கேட்டோன்னா ஒரு ஆத்ம திருப்தி கிடைக்கிறது. That is what you are feeding your soul, honoring ourselves, like being here. We always speak about, like, yesterday, I were a king, I did that, then say tomorrow I have an early flight. We never cherish today. I'm happy for today because I want to be in that. That's what I learned. And the music really connects me to be in the ground and the mind, body, soul alignment. So in that way, I would say that I'm happy to be in the panel too. Cheers.
Thank you very much. And we're all very happy to have such a diverse number of people with different areas. But we finished with Mahesh sir, and I have one it was this question which came when you told about that thesis you're doing and that patient care. I would like to know from your perspective as a musician, how did you think of music as therapeutic? You already answered some of that, but how did you think you have to do this thesis? What was the necessity or the thought that you should pursue something therapeutic? What was your understanding of therapy in music that took you through that path?
Beside me, in the traditional background and also the profound grammar, I was also happy and to appreciate other kind of genres. So if you say, if you are in a different part of the geography, let's say the opposite part and the American history and the jazz music. So the choice differs. You might like Carnatic music. I might like jazz music. There are so many variety and genres of music. So I want to really understand and also the capability and diversity of that. So when I started traveling, I could feel that. So there is different art forms other than Carnatic music. They're same Western classical, and you have a art form everywhere, folk arts everywhere. Starting from India, India has a diverse nature where like each 200 kilometers, you see a different set of food, different set of music, different set of folk artists coming up. The same way, I try to learn and exhibit and explore different kinds of genres of music. In that way, it found very, very interesting. And I could see that when I was in Africa, I could see an example that the children's, they react so very well. They don't even know. But you start doing any takita, 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 then they start dancing. No matter they don't worry about the physics. They don't worry about any conditioning. Music is the only baseline. So by my travel, I could sense that that was more than for me to be a bread and butter. Besides that, there's something more that it could give me. So when it can really give me, I thought I could give that back to the community. And I had that gesture that I wanted to give it back.
That is lovely, sir. Thank you so much for that. Sir, now I'd like to go on to Shiva Prakash, sir. He's basically from the medical area and more specifically in psychiatry. So there's a lot of psychological areas that we can look at when music works. But from a clinical point of view, sir, what do you think or how do you think music can work? And if there are any limitations that you see, or how can we make it better?
Thanks. You're talking about the clinical perspective, right? See, from my experience in psychiatry and mental health, definitely music therapy can play a very big role, but I believe it's largely underutilized. It's not been utilized enough. So that only means that we need to create a lot more awareness, which means there has to be constant dialogue between the music therapists and the faculty and the PG residents in psychiatry department. So research, I feel, is very less in India in the psychiatric population. From the advanced nations, I see a lot of research coming up on a variety of mental disorder benefiting from music therapy, ranging from depressive disorders, schizophrenia, substance use. Okay, we have done a bit of research in our department too. And there are even some articles from the Western literature where music has been studied in patients who are unfortunately aggressive or violent and has had a positive impact. So I feel definitely we need to do a lot more research. And now, though we all know that music is therapeutic, music heals, but we need to convince, the doctors. So these days, you can only convince people through research because there is this paradigm of evidence-based medicine. So otherwise, the acceptance is going to be very low. So I feel that definitely there is a role, but it needs to be exploited a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. I think there are some points in what you said that we'll actually take up a little later. But I'd like to ask Mahalakshmi ma'am and Chitra ma'am, because they're in schools. Chitra ma'am in special needs and Mahalakshmi ma'am with just normal children in schools. What is your perspective as to how music can work? You've seen it but is there any specific areas and how you think we can take it forward?
I think, especially when it comes to children with special needs, there are a number of times when the conventional therapist, like say the speech therapist or even the physiotherapist, is trying to make the child do something. But then, they'll keep on saying, solu. The child will not move. But the minute you switch on a music, that the words tend to keep coming. So, and I am very, very, I completely agree with what Dr. Shiva Prakasham said. If I go to even a rural mom and say, traditional therapy, vanda, we will use music, abdina, paata solli enna panna poringa. How is music going to help? And that is where, yes, evidence-based research, which we are trying to do now. But then, take a country like India, we are talking about 26 million people with disabilities, 75% of which are in the rural areas. You have no access to the conventional therapist in a rural area, but you definitely have access to music there, right? So if we are also talking about how cost effective it can be, right? Only thing is it probably needs to be packaged the way it'll convince a mom to say, okay, this will be beneficial. I think that is where the organizations have to come together and literally, but I see a lot of need for something like this. And also, I think exposure to the right kind of music. Like why should somebody who is aggressive not listen to the traditional dapangutu which they are actually used to? How do we communicate this without hurting cultural values? And I think that is where it becomes. Also, when I said music is elitist, the minute we start singing, a lot of them will say, oh, this is not for us. Because it is, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Only now you have a wider range of audience coming in for also, and imagine taking this to a mom who is already struggling to accept the fact that the child is not going to speak. And to that mom, I'm saying, no, don't worry, with just listening to this music, your child will say more words than what I could, I've seen this happen. I've seen this in the school, where a child who is really aggressive, who's having a temper tantrum, but if we play something that he likes, or you take out a drum and let him show the aggression on that drum, he forgets about his tantrum and he's concentrating on, which is what we need to do. And we need to do more of it. And we can do more of it when there is real solid evidence to say not one child, but a group of them have benefited out of this. I think that is where our biggest challenge is in how do I take this to a rural mom? So, and looking at the kind of population we are faced with. But it's very, I'm very, very hopeful that there is light at the end of it, but we should just keep going with it, definitely.
Thank you, ma'am. 2018, we did a project with Sri Aurobindo Society. Dr. Sampananda Mishra was our chief there. Something called as Chandas. It's an experimental project where we took around 20 bright children. I mean, we call them as above our age, another 20 slow learners. And they started teaching them with a particular Chandas in a meter repeatedly, like Hayagriva, Sloka, and few Gayatri mantras and all that. And Jonathan Coles from UK, he had come down for the research with Romalisin, and they had a wrist band sensor. With that, they did experiment for about 3-4 months with these children. And once they start chanting it, listening to it, how it reacts in their body, what happens to their physiological changes and all that. And whether certain mantras are very helpful for the children, whether it calms down their anxiety, whether it's improves their memory, whether they're able to retain retention power and all that. Surprisingly, after the research, we did get the feedback from them. And also I could evidently see the feedback with my children, that whom I call them as slow learners, they were in 8th at that time. Now they passed out 10th and 1st. Surprisingly, they all scored about 85%. So I may not have a scientific data to produce, but that has really worked because we made sure that the children practice the same every day at home because the parents were also convinced with that. Something good goes in. So that was a real takeoff for me. So I thought somewhere music is doing a wonder there. Like when a child is born, what do we normally do? The child is put in the heart, mother's heart to listen to the rhythm. That I think music starts from there, right? The lullaby, mother's lullaby. So if you have that acumen, I think you can grasp everything in nature, which is music. Even a thunder is a music for me. When I sit in the car and somebody plays something or somebody rattles something, that also gives me a rhythm. My mother and I used to play when we were children, like when the bus honks and goes, she'll say, what scale is this? Whether it is C sharp or C. So that kind of game we play. So you can connect yourself with everything there. Recently, I did study a research paper in UK produced for school children, not China, where they have said that elementary school children are more receptive to rhythmic kind of music, more of a fast type tempo to calm them down. Whereas when you go to senior secondary level, they prefer music that blends their mood because a lot of mood swings are there with them. So the music also differs with children. So if she, as she rightly said, people think music is an elite kind of thing. And with my children, some of them are inclined to Carnatic, some of them, what is this? That's what the reaction they say. Some like rap, jazz, whatever it be. Identifying what kind of music will suit that child is the greatest challenge, I will tell you, because we can easily say music will heal, but to you, Shiva will heal. But for somebody, it may not be Shiva, it may be a drum beat somewhere, Chandai in the Kerala. So that we need to work on. Maybe that will give a positive feedback or effect on a child when we use the music system. I want help in those lines, like how we can work with these children, what instruments or what music can enhance the child in the learning or adjustment areas. Thank you.
I would like to add one thing. Not only that I'm happy to be in the panel, and I also wanted to be a little responsible. So as ma'am said that it's a long process, what I did, it's almost like it's a daily process. Daily is a learning. So I'll be happy to support the children's with the Konokol, and let's start the first action so that let's start with let's see on monthly ground how it progress, and then let me give time, and then on that basis we will do a research on it. And as you said, it's a very valid point. It might be Shiva for me, and it's not the same for no. So let's see what it could. So I can devote my quality time so that I could work on it.
Thank you so much, sir. That's really one of the things that we think should come out of a panel is a suggestion to go forward. So thank you very much, sir, for that thought. I'll go back to Ananda, sir, because for him, I think he has three different dimensions: a musician, a medical person, and a yoga therapist. And he is also a dancer and a percussionist. So I understand he also understands the mind, he understands the body, and probably on the spiritual level as well. So I'd like to know from sir the different dimensions of how he thinks it work, and being those three different dimensions, does he also see the difficulties in explaining or understanding?
See, actually, what we need to realize is that when you study anatomy, you study the digestive system separately. You study the cardiovascular system separately. In physiology, they'll teach you separately. Then you go to biochemistry, they'll teach you the glucose metabolism, Krebs cycle, TCAS cycle. So we learn all these bits and pieces, but ultimately it is all the same person. And this is one of the dangers that has happened in specialization and super specialization. We have forgotten the whole person approach. So when we are utilizing therapies that are mind-body therapies, be music therapy, yoga therapy, they are working simultaneously at all levels. So it is not, we often think asana works on the body, pranayama works on the breath, meditation works on the mind. It's easy to put it in boxes, When you do that asana and you hold it with stability, what we call sthirata sukhata. Sthiram sukham asanam we say. Steadiness is there and balance is there. When you have that physical stability and balance, your mind will start to become stable and balanced. Your breath, when you stabilize the breath, the mind will start to be stabilized. So similarly with music, when we are looking at rhythm, what happens when today we had all our rhythmic sessions? Why do you all come together in rhythm? Because we are made up of biorhythms. We are made up of what are called the biorhythms. Could be a day cycle, circadian rhythm, shorter cycle called infradian, ultradian. Infradian is the longer one. Yeah, ultradian is the shorter, like the nasal cycle. And don't forget that your heart is constantly going through a cycle. Love-dup, love-dup, love you, love you, love-dup, love-dup is going on. There's a cycle going on. Your brain waves are cyclic patterns. Your ECG is a cyclic pattern. You look at all the waves in the body, they are cyclic. So the moment you utilize rhythmic-based music therapy, you are giving an opportunity for harmonization of all the biorhythms in that individual. Whatever that biorhythm may be, it may be your glucose metabolism, it may be your cardiac cycle, it may be your delta waves and alpha waves. It doesn't matter which rhythm it is, that which was out of rhythm is coming into rhythm. This is the impact of rhythm. Similarly with melody, what are we doing? That which was out of tune, you are bringing it into tune. So you have a certain mental nature, we call it prakriti. So we say you could have your gunas, you could have your doshas, kapha dosha, vata dosha. You could be tamasika guna, rajasika guna, satvika guna. Now what we find is that prakriti, which is our essential nature, gets distorted. It is called vikriti. So vikriti is a distortion of your real nature. And how do you get the vikriti back to prakriti? Sanskriti. Sanskriti, which is culture. So culture means to grow. We think culture means the way we dress, the way we eat. Culture means to grow. Horticulture, agriculture, sericulture. You have to culture yourself to move from the aberration back to your normalcy. And that is where the melody comes in. So melody is helping culturing us back from the aberration to normalcy. Our normalcy, not somebody else's normalcy, not that mean plus or minus standard deviation normalcy, which says everybody has to be 5 foot, plus or minus 2 inches. And if you are more than that, you are abnormal. You are below that, you are abnormal. That is, I'm not talking about that normal. Your normal, you as an individual have your own normalcy, which has been lost. You are regaining it. You have lost your rhythm. You are regaining it. And this is how music is approaching as a whole person approach.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for that. I want to ask a similar question to Srinivasan sir, because he's from the Department of Biochemistry, so he understands the micro areas of the hormones and the stress levels, but he also understands music. He also actually, I think you explained about how it helped you through in COVID. So is there any way you can explain, there are these jargons in science as to no explanations for music, but being a musician and also a part of medical or clinical areas, how do you tend to bridge that? And how do you accept music therapy? Because the way we do as music therapists do, and the way we try to work are different from you having two different perspectives of it. So how do you bridge that?
First, I should confess, actually, I'm taking a long time to comprehend actually the question actually that Ms. Bhavana actually is just willingly able to do that. I'll try my best. See, from the perspective of science, yes, Dr. Shivaprakash will understand the nuances of neurochemistry. It's a complex system. Anything which is perceived at molecular level has to be complex. Basically, the transmission of impulse from one neuron or one nerve cell to other can either be through electrical or it can be due to chemical. Very simple. And you'll be surprised to know this interplay of these biogenic amines. We call them dopamine, serotonin, 5-hydroxytryptamine. You won't believe. I'm just going to give you one example how music actually can instigate on a positive note. Usually instigation is a derogatory term, but it can be done. You won't believe. I will just tell one small instance. I think I earmarked this actually to my dear MSc students as well as my postgraduate diploma students in music therapy, the so-called seasonal affective disorder, which Dr. Shivaprakash will know. Those people who are far removed from the tropical places, they are bereft of light. When the light is not falling, that's why we say, for example, for us, Surya Namaskar, Aditya, I think it is almost embedded in our life. Such are those people who do not have a chance to bask in sunshine, they suffer from depression, which Dr. Shivaprakash knows very well. They call it seasonal affective disorder. It's a complex cycle. They did 2 types of studies. Lot of people who are afflicted with the seasonal affective disorder, they literally become sad. The acronym also is SAD, seasonal affective disorder. The feeling of sadness is there. When they start binge eating, simply just take some 2 or 3 packets of Lay's or 3 packets of Nandran chips and all, they're surprised actually to find out that the mood got elevated. It was a very phenomenal. What is the connection between seasonal affective disorder and eating? Then the biochemists came to the rescue. They told, if the fellow takes a diet which is rich in carbohydrates, ultimately it is going to enhance the concentration of glucose in the blood. If the concentration of glucose in the blood is increased, then comes our gentleman insulin from the pancreas, because insulin is stimulated and released into the bloodstream when our blood glucose starts increasing. The work of insulin is to lower the blood glucose. It is not doing magic. It decreases the blood glucose by making the availability of the glucose to the tissues, converts the extra glucose into storage form glycogen. Most importantly, many people forget insulin role is not only in the metabolism of glucose, which Professor Ananda highlighted, it can also enhance the transport of certain amino acids. So very small molecules. Small molecules, amino acids, particularly few amino acids, including tryptophan and leucine. When this tryptophan goes, hitherto the tryptophan levels in the brain was less. Thanks to the binge eating by the person who is afflicted with the seasonal affective disorder, lo and behold, blood glucose concentration increases. Lo and behold, insulin jumps into this philosophy here. Then lo and behold, in the process of absorbing the glucose, it is also making available a few select amino acids to enter the brain. One such amino acid is tryptophan. From the tryptophan comes 5-hydroxytryptophan. From that comes serotonin, the one which is the mood stabilizer. Can you imagine? Then they performed the studies and they found out, especially music with rhythm and music without rhythm. That actually in Carnatic and Hindustani also we have the alapana, the acapella, which was just telling, with rhythm. With rhythm actually mean minimum rhythm. They found out a surprising thing. When vocal music was used, the binge eating actually did not improve. Didn't improve. On the contrary, instrumental music, then they found out the component of lyrics. Those people, if they cannot comprehend the lyrics, it is not making an impression. Whereas melodic component, which is obviously manifest in the instrument, with and without rhythm also it is making, and they found out the binge eating decreased. It is not. Anybody can check. So what more explanation you want? Actually, everything is documented. But as Dr. Shivaprakash and Dr. Ananda as clinicians, they would appreciate, unless you chip in with evidence base, nobody will listen. That is what Dr. Mahesh Vinayakaram also is just making a sincere effort. It is very nice of him to come, because a few days back, Karuna Nagarajan madam, who has been doing a lot of research, she utilized, I think probably, I don't know, she has utilized actually the Konako either from your school or from Somsekhar Joyce, who is also from your school, I think, who is also from school. And she found out basic study she has done on autistic children, but what she is not having, we have, because we are now in the realms of health science comprehensive unit, which has got medicine, dentistry, and other things, not to forget well-grounded department of psychiatry and music therapy. And if Mahesh can chip in, despite his busy schedule, I think Chitra madam and SBV can strike a ternary complex and do wonders and contribute in this direction, especially with reference to children with special needs.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a mini class for us. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I've been watching Mahesh sir has been meticulously taking notes, and I've been looking at it since morning. Thank you so much for that, sir. It's a real treat to look at. But based on everybody's thoughts about evidence and difficulty of bringing music therapy, I would like Meena ma'am, because she's been in this yoga therapy field for 15 years, and I'm sure she would have gone through these walls every time she tried to push. So I'd like to have her version of may not music therapy, but a therapeutic aspect.
Thank you, Bhuwana, for asking me something which I can answer. Because practicality, when I was, sent to a school of children with special needs, Sade, it was a classroom, maybe this big, with 63 children. It is a mixed group with all types of children with special needs, autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. Everybody were in that room. And I was supposed to be taking a yoga session for them. So I actually didn't have a clue as to what to be doing with them. But I would say what brought them all together is the, like ma'am was saying, Gayatri Mantra. So we would start with a prayer. So just make them sit down is difficult, of course. Some will be walking around, some will be, outside the room, whatever it is. But start with the Om Bhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. And then, I would at least gain some attention. So then I started understanding that, okay, we need some, medium to connect all of them. So then, like sir was saying, yoga, the sound-based medium. Like in yoga, we have a lot of these sounds which are used, playful sounds. If I can sit down there and show, I think it will be better. So while we are doing an asana, instead of telling them go forward bending and backward bending, what I would do is like, bring in a song, the usual Yelelo Ailasa song, right? The fishermen use it. But when we go with the song, it makes it more interesting. One is physically, the other one is breath is involved. And they are making the sound, which means the exhalation component is more, calming them down, bringing their mind into it, and they are now involved. And this, I would say, brought all the autistic children into the groove because they were not in it. So it is like, and then I would say, Yelelo and bend forward. And then they will have to say Ailasa and come back. If you're all ready, can we just do the song? I would say Yelelo, you have to come with Ailasa. Okay? Ready? Yelelo. 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 So this was something which brought them, into this groove where I could connect everybody into a common group because it was such a varied group. And the other thing is like I had the fortune of taking, yoga to the senior citizen in an hospice where they were completely like so depressed because they were all away from homes and their children had, abandoned them or just left them here. So what happened? They were so depressed that they would not even talk to you. They didn't want to do anything. So the moment I approached them, my PhD project was done there in the hospice. So Sister Maria was the in charge there, and she said, like, I'll give you one challenge. There are a few elderly women who will not come out of the bed. Put the foot down out of the bed. If you can involve them, I will, give you permission. So after talking to them so much, after a lot of compelling, they came out and then sat down. But there's one particular old lady, Rosamma. Varave illa, kadasi varaikum. She was turning to the other side of the wall. But she said after some time came and, like she was one of my subjects. And she told me, Yenna ungalku appadi evlo striffa irundinga. What made you come and join us? She said, Pranava. So the Nada brought her out, who was like totally depressed, no interest in life. Why should I live? What is the purpose? They were different, so many different women and men there who, the children had just left them in this old age home, in the hospice. Like Antonovsky used to say, after the Holocaust experience, a few of them were able to manage, a few could not. So what was the difference in them? There was this difference that I could see in the hospice without even knowing what salutogenesis meant. But Nada brought, the life back, put them into the track where we could, through the yoga therapy, enable them to participate, and that brought in a lot of positive changes. So I would say Nada and this. And for you, ma'am, when you were saying, like the mothers, they don't understand, the music and all. So the same thing, we have a problem when we are doing the yoga therapy. They don't understand yoga va adella edukka ayya vena adu enna panna podhu. So what we now try to do is involve them also, because they are care providers. They are also under immense stress. Put them also in the same group along with the children. So let them do whatever the children are doing. They learn, and back home they can do the practice. So it is a win-win situation for us. Make it a yoga mela. That's it. So maybe you can try it out. Right.
I would just like to add here, because she talked about the pranava, which we use as the akara, ukara, makara, the a, u, and the we use the components and then bring it together. We had a yoga therapy intern from Australia, Ellen, who took on the name Amba. She used to go to neurosurgery. Speaking of breaking down clinical barriers, one of the toughest barriers is neurosurgery. They're like, what do you guys have to do with us? And luckily at that time, Natesan sir was there. So he was very pro yoga music. So she got a chance to work with the people who had gone through stroke. And there was one patient who couldn't speak. He had lost aphasia. He had lost the capacity to speak. And she used to go daily, and she would go and tell him, open your mouth and make the sound ah. And mudiyadu. And he will say, he'll show with hand, I cannot. People around him will say, avarku pesa varadunga. Like this only they were telling. She said, no, try. Ah. You won't believe, 3 weeks later, that guy was speaking. 3 weeks later, she documented it, and Natesan sir was totally floored. We asked that man, what is it that motivated you to speak? Because everybody was saying, you cannot speak, you're not able to speak, that. He said, that lady making me go, ah. That thing we say, agara mudala ezhuthellam. All languages start with ah. His capacity to once again speak was motivated by her persistence. Because what do we do normally? And that patient, he cannot speak, so don't try. At persistence that I will try, And he said that is what motivated me. So I think we have to be careful in clinical situations. Not only the doctors, the care takers who are there will say, "Adu varaduma, pesaduma, pannaduma." There is a lot of negativity. So we have to go beyond that and try, because definitely we can make a change. And persistence is a very important quality for a therapist.
Thank you very much, sir. I have just three words that's coming out of everything, and then I'll go to the next question that's connected. One is experience, next is evidence, and then awareness. So these three things are very important. One is experience. Unless they experience it, they're not going to be able to allow you to do anything. And once you get that evidence, then you're able to create awareness. So I think these are the main things that's coming out. Based on this, I'd like to ask, because one is evidence-based, and we all know there is evidence. But I like from everyone, I'm sure everyone has done evidence-based practice. More so Shiva Prakash sir, Srinivasan sir, Ananda sir, Meena ma'am, Satya, even haven't, but you were talking about studies, and even Mahalakshmi ma'am, sir, Mahesh sir also is doing his thesis. So I'm sure you're all understanding what this scientific evidence is. Based on what is already available, how can we take this forward, and what can be more robust ways of creating evidence?
So actually, we have seriously started thinking about integrating this in the syllabus. So we have this multiple intelligent classes where we have art teacher, dance teacher, music, and the subject teacher teaching one particular topic. So they get exposed to all kind of this. So I was also seriously thinking if that could be a part of the curriculum, you know. I mean, we spend for PT, we spend for yoga, maybe even for group discussion, debate and all that. Something like 45 minutes every day based on this, initially to create an awareness. Because I would never say children don't like music. They may not know the nuances of music, but then even a cine song, every child wants to pick up. There is some tune, whether he's able to sing or not, he enjoys that, the rhythm, beats, whatever it is. So I basically feel they have music in their system. It's that we need to tap that particular area. So as you said, make them understand what it is. No, not go technically deep into it, but then tell them, convince them that this kind of what they think as music can really help them in physiological and psychological development or whatever it is. Probably after getting convinced, then that 45 minutes duration, we can segregate the heterogeneous group into how they like the session, and then start working with that. But I may be a musician, but I won't be able to do that kind of therapy that a music therapist does, because they're technically qualified and they know how to go about. So that kind of basic training should be given to a set of teachers in the school, where we have like special educators we have in school who handle autistic children. Like that, a set of teachers who basically have some understanding, convinced with the system, should be given a duration, a training session, and then they in turn can work with the children. But it's a long-term process, but then I don't mind giving it a shot in my school.
Basically, you know, like when we started working with the special children, I don't know whether there were any references of studies like this particular technique helped or anything of that sort. Because, you know, we draw the line thinking that or saying that they cannot do it. We cannot make them do this. It is we who draw that line. They are beyond, you know, that. And once you start exploring with them, they go beyond all, you know, barriers. So we only draw that line saying that this is not possible for them. They are below learning or average or below. So I don't know what gives us the right to judge that way. But to me personally, I would say the anecdotal evidences that we had with the children with special needs, or the silver citizens, or the transgender population, so those led to the studies that we have taken forward. Of course, traditionally, we have a few pointers saying that this is good, you know, some techniques are good with this population. But with the anecdotal evidence and our, you know, like this evidence, traditional evidence, traditional backing, we would say, for example, the children with autism at Satya and Karunai, we had the toothbrushing skills. The dentistry and ISCM came together. So, their dental health is not so good because they don't do it themselves. So it is a simple life skill. Can we teach them to become independent? So that was how, like the usual audio visual pedagogy is there. They are shown pictures, they are shown videos like how to brush. And then that was one group, and the other group where we included a few yoga techniques, like, where the stress was alleviated, all the nada sounds and all those were used in the other group, yoga techniques. And then we found that along with yoga, the audio visual was also given. And in that group, there was a lot of improvement in their dental health. So, things like this are beginning to happen now, because like in our setup, which is so integrated, all these, we have this opportunity for the interdisciplinary work to happen. And we have people like Dr. Shiva Prakash and, people in dentistry who are willing to work with us. Because otherwise earlier, I don't know whether they would, they would be maybe willing to work with Ananda sir, but never, me, because I don't blame anybody because I am not a qualified doctor to be in this setup. But whereas, like these led to the evidence-based, work, whatever we have done, whatever we are doing, I would say it is that pathway.
Actually, we have recently made a compilation of 76 studies in yoga therapy, music therapy done here over the past decade. And we have submitted to Vice Chancellor for approval for publication. 76th year of Indian independence, 76 studies that have been here. So that is going to go into public circulation. It's going to have an ISBN number. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to go out into the public. And we are going to circulate it amongst the clinical population so that our doctors can start to realize, yes, there is some evidence. So creating awareness, creating evidence, and again, realizing how fortunate we are here to be in a medical setting and work being done in psychiatry, work in dentistry, work in OG, work in pediatrics. They can go to the neonatal intensive care unit and give music therapy. Now, in which hospital will they allow that to happen? We can go into neurosurgery and give yoga therapy. Who's going to allow that in any hospital? So here we are unique in that opportunity. And that is why if you look at the studies that are being done, they are unique in the world. Like there may be one hospital where one study has been done. Now it may be a great study, but here there are so many coming. So now we have worked on evidence, if not at the highest level, a medium level of evidence we do have. Now we are working on creating awareness. And then you have to have randomized controlled trials, meet the expectation. But also don't forget, as a music therapist, music therapy, like yoga therapy, doesn't really fit into the drug model of research. So the drug model of research is double-blind randomized controlled trial. With music therapy, yoga therapy, it doesn't fit into that. So we may need to use newer methods. We may have to rely on qualitative methods, not only quantitative research. And though it may not be, the top level of evidence, I think we need to look at it, because to say that 30 patients in group A, 30 patients in group B, all 30 will receive the same therapy, I don't think it is really the way music or yoga works. There has to be a lot of personalization. Now, the moment you personalize, it cannot be randomized. So we need to look at that. So play the game. If you're playing football, you have to play with your legs. If you're playing basketball, you play with your hands. If you're playing tennis, use the racket. So realize you have to play the game called research with the tools that are available, but try to see, can you bring innovation into it? That is where the younger generation, the next generation, look at what innovation can come in research so that you take the message to the world.
I just wanted to know something from Mr. Maheshji. When I had a discussion with my senior students, music students, like how you did Charakeshwari today, it's Bhavam, Bhakti, right? Like Hatana for Gambiram and all that. Children were asking, is there certain kind of ragas? Of course, there are a lot of research, many publications are there, but practically they're asking, when I'm so stressed, which raga will reduce my stress? When I'm not able to sleep in the night, which acts like a dopamine, so that when I start listening to that instrument music, I go off to sleep. I mean, they were asking, is there any specific raga that I don't need to learn, but I want to play and then feel it? So I would like you to give some insight.
And just a 2 minutes of little bit of learning. And I said, play the game, hashtag evidence. So are you ready for that? Before I answer that, are you ready for the game? Okay. Ta di tom nam. Say that. Ta di tom nam. But I want everybody to be there. Ta di tom nam. Ta di. It's like that. Ning armikla. Ta nam. Ta di tom nam. Okay. Ta. You can make it better. More. Okay. Ta. Ning arminga. Ta. Okay. Ta ti tom nam. This side A and B. Ta ti tom nam. Ta ti tom nam. Tata didi tom tom nam nam. Tata didi tom tom nam nam. You see the accent? Tata didi tom tom nam nam. You just make the silent ta ding tom nam. And you do the tata in the head. Ta di tom nam. Try that. Ta di tom nam. Body percussion. Ta di tom nam. Ta di tom nam. Tata didi tom tom nam nam. Tata didi tom tom nam nam. The raindrops. Single finger. 2 fingers. Water coming up. 3 fingers. 4 fingers. 3 fingers. 2 fingers. 1 finger. Play the game. Evidence. We are the witness.
Thank you very much for that. I'd like the answers for the research evidence from.
Thank you. But before I answer that question, just a few seconds in continuation of what I was saying earlier. One thing I wish to emphasize, especially for the students here in the audience, the mind is a product of the brain. That's the current scientific understanding. So our experience, whether it's positive or negative, everything is happening in the brain. And music is processed in the brain. So if you take the brain out of the equation, music is not going to touch any other organ in the body. So if music works for asthma or works for gastritis or even diabetes, it's through the brain. So the brain is connected to the entire body through the hypothalamus. So this is one thing I want to stress upon. If you take out the hypothalamus, your music therapy is not going to have any impact on health. We have local benefits, like the benefits in psychiatric disorders, learning disability, okay, intellectual disabilities, and even dementia, Alzheimer's, the local effects. But there are distant effects, that is through the hypothalamus. So that much is very clear. So any research that involves music therapy should involve the brain. So now the other thing I wanted to highlight in response to your question, there's already a lot of research that's been done worldwide, but unfortunately we are lagging behind. So in continuation of what Dr. Ananda sir was saying, I do agree that RCTs are very difficult. But when we are speaking the language of medicine, see now people know that a pill works, an injection works, or a surgery works. But for us to convince them that yoga works or this one works, whether it's doctors or lay people, we need something to convince them. But RCT is very difficult. I do agree. But here I must point out that there are some global experts also, like Daniel Levitin, for example. He's a neuroscientist and a musician. And there are some pockets, there's research all over the world, but there are some pockets. The students here can particularly look it up. There's one group in Finland, okay, and that is Erkila is the author's name, Erkkila. And then in Norway, you have Christian Gold. And then you have Brad from, that is Philadelphia. These are people who have actually spoken about how RCTs can be used for music therapy. What are the challenges? You can't, of course, achieve double blinding. You can only do maybe single blinding. And what are the challenges? And they have published many RCTs. Okay. So I think we have to look through all their output and see what we can do. Definitely, it should be a longer follow-up period. We cannot end with only the hospital stay or 1 month. There are RCTs with a follow-up period of 6 months or even longer. Okay, and larger sample size, of course, that's very, very important. And like sir was saying, we have to go into the realms of qualitative research. Now, I must confess that I'm not that knowledgeable about qualitative research. So we all need to equip ourselves with qualitative research skills, because music therapy will definitely benefit from that. So there are two other quick points that I'll make and I'll finish. One is, we often tend to look at the outcome measure as what music therapy does to mind or body immediately after a session or after a few sessions. Music did something to heart rate variability. Music did something to cortisol level. Okay, after a few sessions or whatever. There are hundreds of publications, but we need to go beyond that. See, as a doctor and a music therapist, have I made a difference to this person's life, not just heart rate variability or cortisol level? 6 months later, see, he or she is probably using music in their life already. They are probably listening, playing music. But because of their contact with me, do they enjoy music better? Do they use music to improve their health and well-being for salutogenesis? I think that is what we should be additionally studying. Have I made an impact on the person's long-term approach towards music? Okay, in their life, not just 6 months or 1 month or 2 months. Okay, the last point I wanted to make was in the context of research. Again, now, especially after the pandemic, there was so much of an uprising with regard to telemedicine and telehealth and all that. And I'm aware that there are some publications involving telehealth and music therapy. I think we need to work a lot more on that. Many of our patients who are poor, they can't travel often. Okay, traveling is not convenient or comfortable in our setup, unfortunately. Financial considerations. So can we reach out to them through a simple WhatsApp call? Okay, a supervised music therapy session through WhatsApp video call or some other video conference platform, so that our music therapy intervention is not restricted to this hall or this hospital. They can be there at home and still do it. And we have to trust them, because all the rating scales and all that, we trust them that they should give us honest responses. So when they say, yes, I did what you said twice a day, we should believe them. Otherwise, research is not possible. Okay, so in fact, I searched PubMed also. There are some articles on virtual music therapy, telemusic therapy, telehealth music therapy. So we need to try and plan for more research in those areas so we can increase our research output. Thank you.
If I am permitted to add with permission of panelists, just taking cue from what Dr. Shivaprakash told, it is high time a center of School of Music Therapy, ISCM or corporate setup, or with the globetrotting musicians like Mahesh, or those like Dr. Meena, gentle ladies like Meena Madam and Chitra Madam, who are working with special children, or Mahalakshmi Madam, or even Dr. Shivaprakash. I think it's time, the time is very ripe that we need to evolve on ethno-music principles. Select some common modalities. See, some there's a effect of pentatonic scale Moganam, they'll say. Somebody will do its effect of Durga. Somebody talks about minor scale. I think time has come now on a common pedestal. We need to evolve some strategies where in the same study, let it be RCT, different genres of music. Why we are not doing that? We, in fact, music is so divine, it is universal. Same beloved thought in Hindustani is our Shankarabharanam. That is a major scale C. Your Kiravani is there. Our Mohanam is there in Japanese music and Hungarian music. Why we are not actually breaking away from the shackles and try to address these issues on a ethno music platform? I think that should be the thing, Zing thing. Now I request Ananda sir, actually on my behalf and personal behalf, I'm quite sure that Mahesh Pinagaram will also be able to do, because he is also an expert in world music. Now time has come for us, as Dr. Shivaprakash told, we cannot indulge in personalized sort of things. It's not possible. As Dr. Ananda says, you have got paradox, the RCTs as well as personalized medicine. But when it comes to the era of medicine, it is all precision medicine and personalized medicine. So somewhere down the line, the complementary medicine has to strike a harmonious balance, which merges the Occident actually with the West and seamlessly integrates the principles of allopathy with complementary medicine. This is what I want to make a humble.
Sorry to take a 1 minute of the answer for ma'am was just asking. Little bit of grammar involved in that. As you see that two swara, Sajjamam and Panchamam, first note and the fifth note becomes Panchama. I mean, these two are called Prakriti swaras, which is immovable notes. Sun and moon are Prakriti. Rigamadani are Vikruti, which gives you changes. So Sa, Re1, Re2. Suddha Rishabham, Chaturstha Rishabham, Sa, Ri, Sa, Ga, Sa, Ga, Sa, Ma, Sa, Pa, Sa, Da, Sa, Ni, Sa, Ni, Da, Pa, Ma, Ga, Re, Sa. White, black, white, black, white, black. And then the octaves, it goes on. So out of this 12 swaras, we stretch into 14 places of notes. Out of the 14 places, we come out with a chart called 72 Melas, Melakarta system. And these 72, as I said, the Sajjamam, Panchamam becomes immovable notes. Rigamadani has a variation. With these Rigamadani, we create a 6 chakras, 6. The first 36 is Suddha Madhyama, which is the Ma one, and then the Pratimadhyama. Not going so much detail with the grammar, but if you take any of the Sampurna, which is the 7 notes, ragas, has a capability and ability to stretch the notes. So in that way, we could say that let it be Shankarabharanam or Sarigama Padanisa, the Shankarabharanam. And if you replace the Madhyamam, Sarigama Padanisa Sanida Pabagariza, is Kalyani. So the same of this 36, if you replace with the Madhyamam, so Prati Madhyamam, it becomes another rag. So all together, I would just answer that any of the shades which on any one of these chakras will reflect the, soothing effect. And also the Sarigama Padani or any pattern of this 36, let it be Shankarabharanam. So in that suggestion, we would say that Dhira Shankarabharanam is the nice one too, which is called the major scale, and which is also called only the name differs. Kafi, they call it as Kafi, we call it as Karahara Priya. So Sagamadani sa Sani the Magasa Hindolam Sagamadani. It's Chandra counts. So with this one note, foreign note, you can make a difference. It's like so with this 72 parent ragas of this 6 chakra altogether 12, the same equal nadis and 49,992 possible combinations can be found, which is called the ragas. So ragas are not only the collection of notes, as you can see the 7 swara devatas are there. So they are devatas, they are entities. So our idea is to, like when we do a raga alapana or a vinyasa, It's just not the collection of notes or PD, or just dwell yourself into the sound and resonance of that raga, so that you can evoke the energy, the bija mantra or the sur and the real effect of that raga. So in that way, I would say Dhir Shankarabharanam or Charukesi is the good choice for you to.
No problem. Thank you very much. This can keep going on, but I think everybody is on the edge of their seats to finish. But before we go, Srimanta sir from Ashwa is here from Goa and has just a couple of questions he would want to ask.
So thank you very much thank you, Dr. Anand and Bhuvna, for inviting us. See, I wouldn't say, I think in front of this August audience, I don't have questions, but I would like to share a bit of my experience in this journey. I'm not personally a music therapist, but I got into this under the inspiration of Dr. Margaret Lobo, who is a music therapist from England, and we have been working with certain aspects. Yeah, and what we have done is also set up 2 centers, one in Greater Noida and one in Kolkata, about working with special needs children, where we have occupational therapy, we have, speech therapy, the usual stuff. We work with them. Music therapy, I think we have very limited resources. So I think I deeply acknowledge and respect the kind of endeavor which you are doing here, because the fundamental challenge about, as we are saying, awareness building, I think that is on the demand side, but on the supply side, who's going to do it? Yeah. And so that's where you are playing the most important role. It has to be sort of enhanced. Again, when you want to enhance, you have to ensure quality. Yeah. Because if you have to do that research and all of that, so I think it's a puzzle which we have to solve. But that's the collaborative approach. And one of the speakers, quite a few speakers in this journey, which you have been doing, wonderful journey of a couple of weeks or more than 2 weeks, I guess. They have really spoken about all of us coming together for this purpose, and the fundamental approach being patient-centric or that particular child-centric and all of that. See, so I have seen it from my personal experience, whether it's an occupational therapist working or even somebody trying to work with dance movement or even music, the fundamental acknowledgement is coming from the child, and then it translates to the mother, and then it propagates through word of mouth. The academicians, the practitioners will have to pick up those nuances and build it into the research process itself and ensure that again, I'm picking up words from Dr. Anand, consistency and persistence. These are the 2 things. This is a very difficult area which we have chosen, actually. We are trying to convince each other in this forum that, okay, yeah, this is going to work. We are talking about chemistry, we are talking about psychiatry, we are talking about so many things, but ultimately at the center of this is a person. Yeah. So I think once as human beings, we have decided to work for this purpose, I think the endeavor has to be that. And irrespective of genre of music, irrespective of culture, society, I think music is something which is universal. And I think Mayank-ji has very, very articulately, through his rhythm, through his sound, through everything, I don't know what to say. I think the almighty Saraswati presence has spoken about it in various formats. Yeah. So I think I was getting a bit overwhelmed, but coming back, yeah, it is that we have to be together in this journey. And humble request, as a person, as a layman who is coming from the perspective, perhaps I'm representing a few 20, 30 odd parents and children with whom I'm working. Yeah. And it's my humble, and we have also started a sort of course and all of that. I think capacity building is of utmost importance. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srimanta, because I think that was the last question I wanted to ask, but due to time constraint, I didn't. But I think he actually summed up the whole thing. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, sir, for this amazing panel. We have come up with a lot of thoughts and suggestions and probable collaborations, which we may be taking forward in the next few years. Now it's time for the valedictory. So if we could all take a seat in the front, then I'll call all we have some prize winners. Okay, sir. All right, sir. Okay, sir. Sorry about that for the inconvenience. So, actually, the students of School of Music Therapy, ISCM, conducted a few competitions for the World Music Therapy Week. So, there are some prize winners for it, and I'd like to call them first. First is the songwriting. We have Kurandai Tamilarasan, AHS. Oh, both two names, huh? Okay, cool. Okay, okay. Sir, each one. What's this? Where is Kurandai Tamilarasan? Best songwriting.